Hello, I am Enrique Perez, your Sterile Processing Tech. And today I have 100 tips for you to study for the Certified Registered Central Service Technician, CRCST, Certification Exam, along with sample questions. I divided it in sections to make it easier to understand. A test is not only going to challenge your knowledge, but also is going to challenge your ability to study, organize, and manage stress. Therefore, I have advice for you to control all those variables, and also I point some specific topics that people tend to overlook. A test is not only going to challenge your knowledge, but also is going to challenge. Here I will give to you some of the most important tips, and if you want the full list, click in the link below to download it totally free. Study tips for the CRCST certification test, go. Number 1, skim before deep reading. Get an overview by skimming the chapters first. Number 2, break it down. Divide chapters into smaller sections for manageable reading. Number 3, study tips for the CRCST certification test, go. Highlight key terms and concepts as you read. Number 4, summarize after each section. Write a brief summary in your own words. Number 5, create mind maps. Visualize relationships between concepts with mind maps. Number 6, review regularly. Go back and review highlighted sections regularly. Number 7, use annotations. Write notes in the margin to clarify complex concepts. Number 8, focus on headings and subheadings. This often summarizes key points. Number 9, create flashcards for important terms and definitions. Number 10, practice active reading. Ask questions as you read to engage with the material. Now, to have an effective study technique, this is tip number 11. Set a study schedule. Allocate specific times for study sessions. Number 12, study in groups. Discussion topics with peers can enhance understanding. Number 13, teach what you learn, because explaining topics to others reinforces your knowledge. Number 14, use practice tests. Familiarize yourself with exam format. Number 15, set goals. Aim for specific milestones in your study plan. Number 16, stay organized. Keep notes and study materials in order. Number 17, eliminate distractions. Find a quiet place to focus studying. Number 18, use multiple resources, include videos, articles, and online forums. Number 19, take breaks. Use the Pomodoro technique. Study 25 minutes and break for 5 minutes. Number 20, stay hydrated and eat well. Nutrition can affect your concentration. Now, if you want techniques for answering multiple choice questions, this is tip number 21. Read questions carefully. Pay attention to what is being asked. Number 22, identify keywords. Look for words that indicate specifics. For example, the word always, never, etc. Number 23, eliminate obvious wrong answers. Narrow down choices to increase odds. Number 24, look for patterns. Sometimes answers can provide clues to each other. Number 25, guess strategically. If unsure, Make an educated guess based on what you know. Number 26, time management. Yep. Keep track of time and pace yourself through the test. Have kind of a rhythm. Number 27, review your answers. If time allows, go back and why not? Double check. Number 28, understand the format. Familiarize yourself with the structure of questions. Number 29, practice under test conditions. This is like a kind of simulate the exam environment. Number 30, stay calm. Practice stress management techniques before the exam. Like for example, take deep breathing. Now, sometimes we have topics that people tend to overlook, like regulatory agencies. This is step 31st. Know key agencies. Familiarize yourself with the CDC, FDA, and AMI. What these institutions or agencies stands for and what they do. This is step number 32. Understand regulations. Learn what each agency regulates in sterile processing. Number 33. Stay updated. Follow changes in regulations and guidelines. Tip number 34. Review agency guidelines. Read through key guidelines from each agency. Number 35. Use agency resources. Leverage resources and publications for study. Now, I'm going to give you few simple questions and regulatory agencies. Please listen and try to keep it in your memory. First question, what is the role of the FDA in sterile processing? You got to know this, or at least kind of manage the concept. Question number 2, which agency provides guidelines on infection control? And question number 3, these are simple questions for you to think about it and study. AMI, AAMI, standards focus primarily on which aspect of sterile processing? Think about it. I'm going to tell you now tips related to medical terminology. This is tip 36. Build a vocabulary list. Create a list of commonly used terms. Tip number 37. Use mnemonics. Create memory aids for difficult terms. Tip number 38. Learn prefixes and suffixes. Understand basic components of medical terms. Tip number 39. Practice pronunciation. Ensure you can say terms correctly. And better than anything, make sure you understand these terms. Number 40. Create flashcards for definitions and examples of usage. Now, I'm going to give you simple questions on medical terminology. Question number 1. What does the term aseptic means? Think about it, study, and look it up. Question number 2. Define the contaminations. Remember that you got to do this in your own terms. So you have the idea, you make sure that you understand. And by making sure you understand, you're going to be okay in the test. Question number 3. What is the purpose of an autoclave or a steam sterilizer? Makes sense, right? Tip number 41. Understand different methods. Learn about steam, ethylene oxide, and hydrogen peroxide sterilization. Tip number 42. Study the effectiveness and limitations of these methods. Know when to use each method. Number 43. Tip number 43. Learn safety protocols. Familiarize yourself with safety measures for each type of sterilization. Tip number 44. Review monitoring practices. Understand biological indicators. This is very important. Again, understand biological indicators and chemical indicators. Tip number 45. Discuss real-life scenarios analyze case studies on sterilization techniques. Now I'm going to give you topics. Well, now I'm going to give you sample questions on types of sterilization. Question number 1. Which sterilization method is most commonly used in healthcare settings? Can you at least guess? Think about it. Question number 2. What is the main advantage of using ethylene oxide? See, by giving you the sample questions, you're going to think what kind of questions you have to answer. You have to answer in the test. Question number 3. How does steam sterilization work? Now, I got the tips for the topic of decontamination. Tip number 46. Understand the process. Learn the steps involved in decontamination. Tip number 47. Know the equipment. Familiarize yourself with washers and detergents used. Tip number 48. This is learn about safety measures and understand the use of PPE, personal protective equipment, and safety protocols, of course. Tip number 49. Review guidelines. Study the guidelines for effective decontamination. Tip number 50. Discuss challenges. Explore common challenges and solutions in decontamination. Sample questions for decontamination. I got 3 sample questions for decontamination. Question number 1. What is the primary purpose of decontamination? Question number 2. Which agents are commonly used in the decontamination process? Question number 3. What is the significance of using PPE during decontamination? Now, I got the tips for the topic of maintenance of sterility. Tip number 51. Study storage guidelines. Understand how to store sterile items or sterile instruments and trays. Tip number 52. Review handling protocols. Know how to handle sterile instruments. Tip number 53. Understand environmental controls. Familiarize yourself with air quality and humidity controls. Tip number 54. Learn about shelf life. This is very important. Again, learn about shelf life. Understand how to determine and track shelf life. Tip number 55. Discuss best practices. Explore best practices for maintaining sterility. Now, I have sample questions on maintenance of sterility. Sample question number 1. What is the importance of proper storage in maintaining sterility? Sample question number 2. How can sterility be compromised during handling? Sample question number 3. What environmental factors can affect the maintenance of sterility? Now, I got tips for the topic of distribution of sterile instrumentation. Tip number 56. Know distribution procedures. Learn the workflow for distributing sterile items. Tip number 57. Understand inventory management. Familiarize yourself with tracking and managing sterile items or sterile instruments. Tip number 58. Study transportation guidelines. Know how to safely transport sterile instruments. Tip number 59. Learn about expiration dates. Again, this is important. Learn about expiration dates. Understand how to manage items with expiration dates. Tip number 60. Review chain of custody. This is review the different areas and people that manage or handle the item or handle the sterile instruments. Familiarize yourself with documentation practices as well. I got 3 sample questions on distribution of sterile instrumentation. Number 1 question, sample question number 1. What is the best practice for transporting sterile instruments? Sample question number 2. How should sterile items be labeled? Sample question number 3. What role does inventory control play in sterile processing? Now I got final tips for you. Yes, pay attention, listen, and learn. Tip number 61. Utilize online forums. Engage with others preparing for this exam. Tip number 62. Use study applications. Consider applications for flashcards or quizzes. This is very useful. Tip number 63. Incorporate real-world scenarios. Relate concepts to practical situations. Tip number 64. Seek mentorship. Keep this in mind. If you look for somebody that have experience and knows the topics that you're interested on, what will you do? Stick around this person and seek mentorship from this person. Find a mentor in the field for your guidance. Tip number 65. Attend workshops. Yes, this can be, well, now we have the internet. We can do it online or in person, which is fabulous. Participate in hands-on workshops or seminars. Tip number 66. Stay positive. Maintain a positive attitude towards studying. Always be motivated. Tip number 67. Visual learning. Use diagrams and charts for visual learning. We many times we learn better when we see pictures along with text. Tip number 68. Listen to podcasts. There are podcasts related to this topic. There are podcasts related to SPD department. Listen to them. Find relevant podcasts to reinforce your learning. Tip 69. This is very important. Read case studies. Analyze real-world applications for sterile processing. Tip number 70. Focus in weak areas. This is areas that you need to improve. Spend extra time on concepts you find challenging. Now, I have also a set of miscellaneous tips. Tip 71. Stay updated with technology. Learn about new technologies and sterile processing. Tip number 72. Use simulation software. If available, practice with simulation tools. Tip number 73. Join professional organizations. Networking can provide additional resources. Tip 74. Prepare mentally. Use relaxation techniques to prepare for this test. Tip number 75. Plan for the test day. Know the logistics of where and when you're going to have the test. I got tips now for the day of the exam. Tip 76. Get plenty of rest. Sleep well before the exam because you need your full concentration and your full energy. Tip 77. Eat a healthy breakfast. Fuel your brain with nutritious food, of course. Tip 78. Arrive early. Give yourself time to relax and settle in before the exam starts. Tip 79. Read instructions carefully. Take your time. Read the instructions and the exam very, very careful. Tip number 80. Trust your preparation. Have confidence in your study efforts. I got tips for post-exam strategies. Tip number 81. Reflect on your performance after the exam. Analyze areas for improvement. Tip number 82. Join a study group. Continue learning with others even after the test. Tip number 83. Stay informed. Keep up with changes in sterile processing practices. You can subscribe to the magazine of the HSPA. Tip number 84. Consider continuing education. Pursue additional certifications or courses. Tip number 85. Share your knowledge. Help others preparing for the exam. This would affirm your knowledge. I got now tips for a mental and physical wellness. Tip number 86. Practice stress relief. Incorporate activities like meditation or exercise. Tip 87. Keep a study journal. Track progress and reflect on what you've learned. Tip 88. Balance study with leisure. Don't forget to take breaks for fun activities. Never get exhausted. Tip 89. Engage in an active learning. Participate in discussions or hands-on practices. Tip 90. Stay flexible. Adjust your study methods as needed for effectiveness. Now I got final thoughts as tips for you. Tip number 91. Celebrate small achievements. Acknowledge progress in your study journey. Tip 92. Visualize success. Picture yourself passing the exam confidently. Tip 93. Maintain work-life balance. Ensure you're taking care of all the aspects of your life. Tip 94. Create a support system. Surround yourself with people who encourage you. Tip 95. Adapt to learning styles. Find what works best for your personality. Now I got tips for resources and tools. Tip 96. Identify key texts. Know which textbooks and resources are most useful. Tip 97. Use online quizzes. Engage with online quizzes related to sterile processing. Tip 98. Attend local classes. Look for community college courses on sterile processing. Tip 99. Explore webinars. Attend webinars focused on sterile processing topics. And finally, tip 100. Stay motivated. Remind yourself of your goals and importance of your work. Finally, at the end of the day, you must read and comprehend what you are reading. If you study hard and follow these steps, you'll have a solid foundation for an effective preparation for the CRCST certification exam. Good luck. I'm Enrique, your sterile processing tech. See you later. Thank you.